get into the advisory. Just days left in the financial year, and a simple timing decision could mean the difference between contributing to your super. So if you get the rules wrong, and you may be paying the price for it, let's join Craig Day from Colonial First State. We really have to worry about these cut-off dates, don't we, Craig? What is the mistake, and how much could it cost you if you miss some of these deadlines?
Yeah, Juliet, so obviously we're leading into the end of the financial year. We've got our non-concessional caps, our concessional contributions that we need to think about. The big thing there is that money needs to be into the fund by the 30th of June. So obviously if you're leaving it to the last minute and there's bank transfers overnight, if it hits the account on the 1st of July, you don't get a deduction this year. So that's really, really important to understand. Also with our notices of intent, so if you want to claim a tax deduction for one of our personal contributions, we need to be aware of the timeframes for that. So I've got to be lodging that notice of intent with the fund by the time I lodge my tax return for the year or by the end of the following financial year. And there's also some eligibility criteria around claiming tax deduction. So if I'm over 67, I've got to make sure I've done my work test. So I've got to make sure I've done my 40 hours within 30 consecutive days during the financial year to be able to claim a tax deduction. So there's a lot going on in terms of trying to maximise your super and really make the most out of those caps leading into 30 June.
So what do you think are some of the major mistakes people make? Is it just simply missing those deadlines?
There's missing those deadlines, not satisfying my work test, but then also some of the mistakes come through and it has to do with the contribution caps changing on the 1st of July and some common strategies around that. So, for example, our concessional contribution cap is going up to $32,500, currently $30,000 this year. That's not so much, that's just being able to put some more money into super, claim a little bit of a bigger deduction. But with our non-concessional caps, so these are these personal contributions I don't claim a tax deduction for, we're seeing that cap increase from currently $120,000 to $130,000 from the 1st of July. And then we have those bring forward rules where I can bring forward a couple of years worth of contributions based on my total super balance. And that could allow me to contribute from 1 July next year $390,000 in 1 year. Then I can't make a contribution for a couple more years. But the big mistake there is what happens is people look to utilise that strategy of what I do is I make my non-concessional contribution up to the annual cap this year. And then what I do, and I might do that on the 30th of June, and then on the 1st of July, I then seek to utilise the bring forward rule because I'm now in a new financial year. And if you think about what that means this year, I can get up to $120,000 in before 1 July this year. And then on the 1st of July, the caps go up to $390,000. So the very next day I utilise that bring forward rule, and now I've got $510,000 into super over two days, which is two different financial years. But the big mistake there you need to watch out for is the way those rules work is if I contribute more than $120,000, then I automatically trigger my bring forward rules in this year. So let's just say I put $121,000 in this year. My cap for the next 3 years now based on 3 times the current non-concessional cap of 120. So I lock myself in at 360. And then when I go and put that 390 in next year, then I've now got a significant amount of excess because I'm not only not getting that increase, but my cap that I think is 390 is actually only going to be 240.
Yeah, right.
Because it was 360. I've already put in my 120 and it's dropped it down. So it leaves a very significant excess there. And the problem with that, and where people, it's kind of common sense to think, well, just don't put more $120,000 in. The issue comes about not because people think they're making a non-concessional contribution. What they think they're doing is making a concessional contribution that they're going to claim a tax deduction for. And there's a couple of real traps there. So for example, if you missed your notice timing and you put it in after you lodge your tax return, well, that personal contribution is now a non-concessional contribution and it would muck up all those timeframes. So you would have, if you've done that in the same year that you do 120, now I'm well over 120, I'll trigger those bring forward rules. And another really weird one is where you go and claim a tax deduction in your tax return for your personal contribution. So let's just say I've gone and sold an asset. The example we have is someone actually got proceeds of $28,000.28. They then contribute their $28,000.28 provided all to super, provided all the notices, but in your tax return you can only claim deductions in whole dollars. And so what happened is that tiny little bit of 28 cents, that now counted as a non-concessional contribution, and that was in the same year that someone was doing this strategy. and all of a sudden that $28,000 caused over $100,000 worth of excess non-concessional
Oh my goodness, well that shows you need to get some advice, don't you?
Yeah.
So who stands to benefit most from this strategy of putting it in? Is it retirees or pre-retirees, people that have recently sold an asset, as you say?
Yeah, so as I said, there's two types of contributions. There's those concessional contributions, which includes SG or personal deductible contributions. So we might have someone working and making contributions, self-employed people like that. But for our non-concessional contributions, looking to take advantage of that strategy I talked about, those non-concessional contributions are coming from our after-tax income or our savings. So that might be most relevant for someone that's looking at selling an investment property or selling some shares and wanting to get that money into superannuation, claiming a tax deduction for a bit of it on the way, but just topping up their super. Or they've got some other sort of windfall, like an inheritance or something like that, and they've been given $200,000 from somewhere, and they think, well, the best thing for this is to get it into superannuation. That's the most concessionally taxed environment in Australia, so let's do that. So that's those people that need to be very cautious of how those rules work. Get it right, great.
Get it wrong, so the other big thing that's happening is payday super coming into effect from the 1st of July. Tell us how this could also trigger some concerns if you then get catch-up contributions. I guess I'm talking about high earners, but you get catch-up contributions that might push you over the threshold for the year.
Yeah, well, payday super is really interesting. Now, obviously what that is all about is linking when we get paid our SG to when we get paid. So currently, under the existing law, the employer only has to contribute quarterly. So as few as 4 times a year. Many employers contribute more than that, but they only have to contribute quarterly. Now we're going to every pay cycle. So if I'm on getting paid fortnightly, I'm going from getting 4 lots of SG payments per year to 26. If I'm getting paid weekly, it's 52. So that's going to be a big issue for small businesses and their cash flow, etc. But in terms of my contributions, this particular year, we're getting this funny transition rule. And what happens is once payday super kicks off from the 1st of July, I'm going to get a full 12 months worth of contributions in the same year. But also for the last quarter that we're currently in, all the SG for that might be paid by as late as the 28th of July, which means for next year, I've got 15 months worth of contributions instead of 12 months. Which could cause me to actually exceed my concessional caps.
Does it roll back into the previous years if you haven't maxed out those 5?
Right, so yeah, there is a carry forward rule there. So the eligibility criteria for that though is it says I've got to have less than $500,000 in super last 30 June, so go back 12 months. And if that's the case, what I've got the ability to do there is to carry forward and use up all of my unused concessional contribution cap amounts from those previous 5 financial years, plus my concessional cap in that particular year. So I could be making concessional contributions up over $100,000 and they would be within my caps. I just got to make sure I'm eligible. So the best thing there to do is jump onto ATO online services via MyGov, and they will actually tell you what your unused cap amounts are, and they'll also tell you your total super balance. And if that's below $500,000, great. So a lot of those times what we see is you might have a main breadwinner in a family group, but there's an asset that's been held in the person staying at home and doing all the unpaid work, right, looking after the family, etc. In those kinds of situations, if we're now selling that asset, that can be a really good opportunity to catch up all of that SG that person has missed out on because they've been doing unpaid work at home or something.
But it doesn't really seem fair that because the rules have changed, people might get tax hits with the 15-month super.
Yeah, well, what the government has done there is they've said, if that happens, we'll look to fix it. They haven't told us how they're going to fix it yet. So there might be something you actually need to do to fix it. You might need to apply to the ATO. And the other issue with that is that people that are going to get caught out by that would be someone that's earning probably over $216,000. Because once you do all the maths, that's from that 30, level on, you're going to get up and over that threshold, or the 32.5. Now, the other issue here is that if you're salary sacrificing, so if you're earning a lot less than that, but you're salary sacrificing as much as you can because you're coming into retirement, then if you're already fully utilising that $32,500 cap, doesn't matter what you earn, you're going to have a problem here. And we don't know whether the government's going to fix that problem as well. So you do need to be aware of it and just watch what happens next year.
So what would be the biggest takeaway that you say here? It's about the cut-off dates, and I guess it's about just the compound, right? The more that you put in, that you can put in, the better off you're going to be in retirement.
Well, obviously superannuation is the most concessionally taxed environment in Australia. So, and it's all about your retirement. So the key takeaways here, we're coming into 30 June. If you're wanting to maximise your caps, you've got to make sure those contributions are in before 30 June. If it's a concessional contribution, you've got to worry about what other types of things do I need to worry about in order to claim my tax deduction. I've got to get my notices in. I've got to be very aware of other transactions as well. If I'm over 67, I've got to worry about meeting that work test. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And then the other issue there is if you're someone that's got, a large amount of money, maybe you've sold an asset or come across an inheritance and you're looking to utilise that non-concessional contribution maximisation strategy, you just got to be really careful. It can work really well, up to $510,000 just over a couple of days over those 2 financial years. But if you get it slightly wrong, then you end up with potentially excess contributions of $150,000. So in that situation, might be good to go and get some advice, although it's getting very late in the financial year for an advisor to turn that around at the moment. But talk to someone that's got some knowledge, or get on the ATO website and try and understand what those rules are. And make sure you just don't inadvertently trigger it.